North Korea is at it again, warning of all-out war if the United States fail to remove sanctions and halt military exercises with its allies Japan and South Korea. Since China is allied to North Korea, invoking a war with the country could ignite a world war. But how realistic are these threats, and should we be afraid? Long hailed as pariah in the world, North Korea spends most of its GDP on defense and controls all communications in the country, most especially the internet, in order to keep its population under control. The country has some strange characteristics. Their calendar begins with the birth of their first leader. So in North Korea, the year is 102, not 2013. In 2012, North Korean archaeologists announced to the world that they had discovered the resting place of a unicorn, according to the North Korean Institute of Social Sciences. As far as social hierarchy goes, there are 51 social categories in North Korea, depending on your loyalty to the regime. The more loyal you are, the better food, housing and jobs you'll get. The country's president is also unpredictable. Kim Jong-un, third in line as the country's leader, was recently accused of executing his ex-girlfriend, along with a dozen other orchestral performers. So, should we be alarmed? North Korea has a history of declaring war. In 1993, it declared a semi-state of war on the US and South Korea. They threatened a holy war, and in 2012, they spoke of attacking South Korea's president with a retaliatory bolt of lightning. In June 2012, they threatened a merciless sacred war, and once again, this month, you guessed it, more promises of war. But despite the provocations, North Korea has not acted on its threat, and its bark may just be worse than its bite, according to most commentators. But a threat of war invokes fear nonetheless.
Really incredible to look at if you think that it could be a movie, but it's not. It's a reality, and it's definitely happening. And little is known about North Korea, especially when it comes to the fact that there is a media blackout. Of course, the question is, and the thing I spoke about earlier, North Korea is threatening war once again, and it is a potential threat, I guess, that would spark a world war. The question I raised earlier is, should one be afraid? Now, I'm not here to answer the questions. Tom Wheeler is. He's a research associate, South Africa Institute of International Affairs. Tom, welcome to the show.
Hello, Ilana.
My first question is, North Korea has a history of announcing this, threatening the US, South Korea with military strikes. I want to ask, and my verstout half om te sê, should we take them seriously this time?
Unfortunately, you have to take them seriously because they've got a nuclear weapon and they've got rockets. And those rockets can reach South Korea, they can reach Japan, probably Taiwan, and mainland China. So, yes, and Russia, because Russia is not very far away from Korea. North Korea, rather. So, yes, you have to take them seriously, but, they've done this many times before. They are totally unpredictable. The news this week is that the factory on the North Korean side where the South Koreans were working, actually was closed down in April this year, has now been reopened in the middle of all this war talk. So they go all ways at once, and that's the big problem with dealing with them.
An interesting community, if you could call it that. I mean, media blackouts, also the fact that they have the culture of bringing this back and saying, we want war, we're declaring this. If military conflict had to begin, let's say they go ahead, what are the chances that other places would help them and back them up? Like, would China get involved in North Korea's defense?
I am rather doubtful of that. I mean, we can't say absolutely what they'll do. But, there have been a number of resolutions in the UN Security Council that have condemned North Korea and China as the so-called ally to the north has not prevented those. In other words, they've gone along with these condemnations of the North Koreans' behavior. Quite a lot of smuggling goes on from China into North Korea because there's so little available to the ordinary people there. And there are a lot of people from North Korea who jump ship, as it were, and go across the river and into China and escape from that country through China. So it's an ambivalent relationship.
Can they survive as a political state? I mean, we look at this and we see that even during the 2010 World Cup, there were threats on their soccer team. You know, like you either win or you come back and you work in coal mines. They have a 101-story building that's standing there in order to say it's the largest in the world. Can they survive?
They survive at the cost of their own people. They talk about 200,000 of their people who have died in prison camps, and they're, people starving. Now, you see these pictures on TV of this absolutely pristine marching military on all kinds of parades. Now, some of that is airbrushed, some of it is real, but the army get all the goodies. The army get everything they need, whereas the ordinary people are made to suffer. And so it's a pretty miserable existence if you're an ordinary Korean.
Tom Wheeler, thank you so much for shedding some light and to talk about this. We really appreciate you being on the show this morning.
It's my pleasure.
Well, he's talking about those images of their polished uniforms, and if you ask me, they just look really scary. Well, if you thought that North Korea would be your holiday destination, also just keep in mind that all religions are banned in North Korea. Well, from serious matters around the world, we're heading to our kitchen. Now, earlier I mentioned wedding cake, the best chocolate cakes, and Zola and Ewan are in the kitchen. They're baking cake.